to Canadian Coffee House Crime. My name is Catherine. Today's story is coming from Winnipeg, Manitoba, as I am here for a few weeks. This is video 32, and it's August 17th, 2023. While in Winnipeg, I like to go walking around downtown and look around at its historical buildings. Checking out the Winnipeg Jets paraphernalia, and I visited with some friends. Shout out to Dave and Natalie. Thought I would try something a little different and a little bold. This episode is going to explore the different street gangs of Winnipeg. There are many gangs in Winnipeg, around 40, and it is known that about 2,000 people in Winnipeg are affiliated with gangs. I've picked 5 of the Winnipeg gangs, and I am going to give you a little history on each one of them. The Hells Angels, the Indian Posse, the Manitoba Warriors, the Red Alert, and the White Boy Posse. I'm going to start with the gang that's probably a household name from one end of this world to the other. That's right, we all know it, the Hells Angels. The Hells Angels are often depicted in a semi-mythical romantic fashion as a free-spirited, iconic group bound by brotherhood and loyalty. With a membership of over 6,467 chapters in 59 countries, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club is the largest motorcycle club in the world. The Hells Angels originated on March 17, 1948 in Fontana, California, when several small motorcycle clubs agreed to merge. How the name of the club became has a couple of different theories. One was that the club's name was suggested by Arvid Olsen, an associate of the founders who had served in the Hells Angels squadron of the Flying Tigers in China during World War II. A letter written to the Guinness Book of World Records by a member of the Hells Angels' behalf instead stated that the club's name was taken from the Hells Angels squadron of the 303rd Bombardment Group, which was active in the European theater of World War II. To become a Hells Angels prospect, candidates must have a valid driver's license, a motorcycle over 750 cc, and the right combination of personal qualities. The club excludes child molesters and people who have applied to become police or prison officers. Intravenous drug use is forbidden. Members in North America are required to ride U.S.-built motorcycles. Harley-Davidson bikes are the most common in the club. The official Death Heads insignia was designed by Frank Sadalik, past president of the San Francisco Charter. Official colors of the Hells Angels are red lettering displayed on a white background, hence the club's nickname, the Red and White. The patches are worn on leather or denim jackets and vests. The Hells Angels incorporated in 1966, trademarking the club's name and 4 symbols. In March 2007, the Hells Angels filed suit against the Walt Disney Motion Pictures Group, alleging that its film Wild Hogs used both the name and distinctive logo of the Harley-Davidson Motorcycle Club without permission. In October 2010, the Hells Angels filed a lawsuit against Alexander McQueen, a fashion designer, for misusing its trademarked winged death heads symbol in several items from its autumn-winter 2010 collection. The lawsuit also aimed at Saks Fifth Avenue and Zappos.com, which stocked the Jacquard box dress and knuckle duster ring that bear the symbol, which has been used since at least 1948 and is protected by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. A handbag and scarf are also named in the lawsuit. The Hells Angels sued Toys R Us for trademark infringement in relation to the sale of yo-yos, which allegedly bear the Death Head logo. In 2019 and 2021, the Hells Angels sued Redbubble in the Federal Court of Australia for infringing on its trademark. In 1977, the Hells Angels arrived in Canada with the Popeye Moto Club patching over to form the Hells Angels Montreal chapter. During the 1980s and 1990s, there was a major expansion of the club into the rest of Canada. The Quebec Biker War was a violent turf war that had began in 1994 and continued until late 2002. The war began when the Hells Angels in Quebec began to try to establish a monopoly on street-level drug sales in Quebec. Many drug dealers and crime families resisted and established groups such as the Alliance to Fight the Angels. The war resulted in the bombings of many establishments and murders on both sides. More than 160 people died, over 300 were injured, and over 100 bikers were incarcerated. In May 2019, the Netherlands was the first country to completely ban the Hells Angels. The presiding judge called it a danger to public order and the rule of law. Other countries such as Germany had banned local chapters but never the entire club. The Hells Angels expansion into Manitoba began with a relationship with the Los Bravos, a local motorcycle club. In the year 2000, the Los Bravos were patched over, becoming a full-fledged Hells Angels motorcycle club chapter. The Indian Posse, or IP, is an indigenous street gang set in Western Canada, based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It is one of the largest street gangs in Canada, estimated to have 6,000 members, engaging in marijuana cultivation, auto theft, illegal firearms activity, prostitution, gambling, and drug trafficking. Also supports and facilitates criminal activities for the Hells Angels motorcycle gang. The gang was founded in the summer of 1988 in Winnipeg as a street gang by the Wolf brothers, Danny and Richard. Richard Daniel Wolf was born in 1975, and Daniel Richard Wolf was born in 1776. The Wolf brothers were Cree, but spoke English as their first language, though Danny Wolf, as an adult, expressed the wish to learn the Cree language. The Wolf brothers picked the name Indian Posse as an attempt to cancel out the negative sense of the word Indian. The symbol of the gang was and still is a red bandana. The red bandana is a symbol of the group's red power politics, symbolizes blood and passion, and because the gang believes that red is the color of power. Cree, Ojibwa, and Métis were all well represented in the Indian Posse. Within a year of its founding, the gang had hundreds of members and primarily engaged in theft, whose members sold cocaine, LSD, heroin, and marijuana. Its members are forbidden to take hard drugs such as cocaine and heroin, are never to speak to outsiders about the gang's activities, and that new members have to endure minutes of pain where they are beaten by other members for at least 5 minutes to test their toughness, while those wishing to leave also had to endure the minutes of pain, but only for much longer. Drive-by shootings are the favorite means of the Indian Posse to eliminate rivals. The Winnipeg Free Press has described the Indian Posse as the gang that has caused much crime in the North End. In September 1994, the Winnipeg police announced that they were targeting the Indian Posse because the Indian Posse had made contracts with criminal elements in reservations in North Dakota and South Dakota in an attempt to set up a cross-border smuggling network. On the 14th of May 1995, Richard Wolf shot a pizza delivery man, Maciek Slawik, the owner of the pizzeria Jumbo Pizza, owed the Wolf brothers $60,000 in a drug debt, and Richard Wolf expected the money in cash in the pizza box, when he ordered a pizza. After Richard Wolfe was charged with attempted murder, his brother Danny Wolfe threatened to kill 2 witnesses if they testified against his brother, leading for him to be convicted of obstructing justice and uttering death threats in September 1995. Richard was convicted of attempted murder on May 31st, 1996. One prisoner stated of the Headingley prison, "If you are not a posse member when you go to Headingley, you soon will be." The Hells Angels approached Wolfe with an offer while he was in prison to become an exclusive wholesaler to the Indian Posse, selling them drugs, while the Indian Posse would continue to serve as street dealers. Wolfe rejected the offer, saying the Indian Posse should be treated as equal to the Angels, not subordinates. Much of the rivalry between the Indian Posse and the Manitoba Warriors concerns their attitudes towards the Hells Angels. The Manitoba Warriors have long purchased their drugs from the Hells Angels, while the Indian Posse takes a more anti-Angel position. The Indian Posse are one of the Hells Angels' major rivals in Western Canada. The imprisoned members of the Manitoba Warriors decided to fight back, and on the morning of the 25th of April, 1996, they gathered themselves together, armed themselves with makeshift weapons from the prison kitchen and workshop, and went on a rampage. A riot broke out at the Headingley Correctional Institute between the imprisoned Indian Posse members versus the imprisoned members of the rival Manitoba Warriors, which brought the Indian Posse gang national attention for the first time. The guards had lost control of the riot, $7 million in damages were occurred, and many guards were seriously injured. In 2005, the Criminal Intelligence Service Canada reported that the Indian Posse had moved into Edmonton and Fort McMurray, where it was actively selling drugs. The same report stated that the Indian Posse was also active in the Grand Prairie and Peace River County regions of Alberta. The Indian Posse is very active in Yellowknife. In November 2009, Danny Wolfe was convicted of 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder, being sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. While serving his sentence in the Saskatchewan Penitentiary, Danny Wolfe was murdered by another prisoner on the 4th of January 2010. A prison shank meant to intimidate him somehow sliced carotid artery. What looked like a nick belied massive internal damage. As Wolfe calmly sipped from a coffee, he collapsed. He was dead at 33 years old. For this violation of his parole, Richard Wolfe was sent back to prison. Wolfe was held in solitary confinement, causing him to suffer from severe depression, which contributed to his death from a heart attack at the age of 40 on May 27, 2016. Richard Wolfe once said in a 2011 interview, "The smart guy can be a tough guy when the time comes, but not vice versa." The Manitoba Warriors are an Indigenous street gang based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Predominantly based in the central and north end neighborhoods of the city, the gang is an exclusively Indigenous organization that was established to the rival Indian Posse gang. Engaging in marijuana cultivation, auto theft, illegal firearms activities, gambling, and drug trafficking also supports and facilitates criminal activities for the Hells Angels motorcycle gang. The Manitoba Warriors were formed as a prison gang in 1993, originating as an exclusively Aboriginal criminal organization at the Stony Mountain Institution. They created the Manitoba Warriors to protect Native and Métis inmates and to rival traditional prison gangs. As incarcerated members were released, they recruited disenfranchised young Aboriginals from their neighborhoods. Each member holds a specific ranking, similar to the ranks found in outlaw biker clubs. The former president was Brian Contois. The Warriors were founded on a code of ethics aimed at bringing some level of morality, pride, and dignity to a way of life that would otherwise be unattainable to these youth. This gang lifestyle promised them employment, money, and brotherhood. There are 300 active members listed in the City of Winnipeg's gang unit database and a further 140 inactive. The Manitoba Warriors are typically located in the central and northern suburbs of Winnipeg. The Manitoba Warriors purchased their drugs from the Lost Bravos biker gang led by Ernie Dew. When Dew and the rest of the Lost Bravos gang joined the Hells Angels in December 2000, the same relationship continued with the Angels as the senior partner and the Warriors as the junior partners. They first caught attention of the police in 1993 and have since become a focal point of police investigation due to the volume and intensity of their activities. The Headingley riot of April 1996 made a reputation of the Manitoba Warriors and led to a flood of new recruits in Winnipeg. Although a number of First Nation leaders such as Elijah Harper and Ovid McCready negotiated a truce between the Manitoba Warriors and the Indian Posse in March 1997. The truce held, however, and both the Indian Posse and the Manitoba Warriors continued to recruit First Nations youth to work as drug dealers. They expanded into northern Ontario and formed alliances with Lost Bravos and the Hells Angels. The patch of the Manitoba Warriors is an 8-pointed sun with the head of a Native American warrior in the center. A crippling blow to the Manitoba Warriors seemed to be of poverty and poor decision-making led to a severe loss of credibility on the streets. For a long time, the Lost Bravos biker gang refused to do business with the Manitoba Warriors, cutting them off from their most important source of illegal drugs. As the Warriors expanded out of prison into Winnipeg and the surrounding area, they also expanded their prison network. Their main territories are in the central and north end neighborhoods of Winnipeg. The Manitoba Warriors have long purchased their drugs from the Hells Angels and are considered to be a puppet gang for the Angels. The rival Red Alert gang were founded in Alberta's prison by First Nation prisoners who did not want to be forced to join either the Indian Posse or the Manitoba Warriors. Red Alert are an Indigenous Canadian organized crime group which operates as both a prison gang and a street gang. Red Alert was established in 1999 by Robert Lee Wagner at the Edmonton Institution along with other First Nation inmates of Cree and Anishinaabe and Métis origin as an alternative to joining two of the other Aboriginal gangs within the Alberta prison system, the Indian Posse and the Manitoba Warriors. Red Alert is composed mainly of Indigenous youth, many of whom have come from rough, displaced backgrounds such as dysfunctional households and juvenile detention. Red Alert maintain an alliance with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, for whom they purportedly sell drugs for. They support drug trafficking, assault, murder, prostitution, robbery, home invasion, and contract killing. In 2006, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police confiscated automatic weapons collected from the Red Alert during a raid. At the time, they characterized the group as a loose affiliation and not an organized, structured unit. Red Alert's oath is blood in, blood out, which means members have to commit a bloody assault or murder to join the gang and can only leave the gang by dying. The gang Red Alert uses the initials RA for tattoos, and the gang's color is red. Members have been known to wear red bandanas. The Red Alert also has an affiliation with the White Boy Posse, a known racist gang. The motivation for the alliance is likely just economic. Red Alert has a network for drug sales that White Boy Posse needs to use to maximize profits. Red Alert is responsible for a string of murders in 2008 around the Paul First Nation Reserve in Edmonton. The White Boy Posse are a Canadian white supremacist neo-Nazi organized crime group founded in 2003 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The organization is primarily active in Western Canada by Sean Fat Mike Jackson, a close associate of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Fully initiated members referred to as the fully patched sports tattoos of the gang. White Boy Posse members are also tend to exhibit tattoos of typical Nazi symbolism cliches. Starting in late 2006, members of the Edmonton Police Service and the Organized Crime Unit of the Canadian Mounted Police conducted an undercover 15-month operation that targeted the White Boy Posse. Dubbed Project Goliath, this law enforcement sting resulted in the arrest of 14 members of the White Boy Posse, 28 firearms, $500,000 in cocaine, over $300,000 in cash, 3,000 ecstasy pills, and several stolen items were also seized by the RCMP. The White Boy Posse have some form of hierarchy. There are some leaders and mid-level members, but the structure of the gang is very much a crew that is called a puppet to the larger gangs, which apparently have been handled by the Hells Angels. The White Boy Posse has in turn done the very same thing and recruited the Red Alert to continue drug sales at the retail levels in communities. The gang is constructed of young white men, and that's their only membership criteria. But they will certainly be willing to partner with a non-white gang, that being the Red Alert, who are made up of Cree and Anishinaabe and Métis for economic purposes. The White Boy Posse isn't that large, and they don't have the tentacles that some of those larger Aboriginal gangs have. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Catherine, and this is Canadian Coffeehouse Crime, video number 32 on August 17th, 2023. This concludes story 3 from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Please feel free to press the like button as it helps with my exposure, and subscribe to my channel as I try to put out a new video every week. See you in the next case.